All right. Who did? Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, sorry, I needed something for my laptop.
All right. Thank you guys for being here. I know a lot of you guys, so I don't have to give you guys the hatch pitch. But thank you for being here. We're in the business of helping other businesses, starting and growing businesses. And this is my employee number one who is like, I've worked too hard today. I need to go home. Yeah, we're talking about you live on TV. So I think this is our 48th month of having this event. So we're really stoked to have you guys here. We got 3 awesome presentations tonight. Space Monkeys Down, Tunol, is that right?
Yeah.
Tunol, and someone I can't remember, Bakery Butler. So excited to have the 3 of them tonight. We record everything, so we'll be able to send you guys out video of that afterwards with the slide decks. And thank you to Endurance and to John Rich Media for providing the beverages tonight. And without further ado, if am I missing anything? Bathrooms are back that way.
You ever introduce everybody?
Typically not.
Okay.
Introduce everybody. We'll start something new. I'm Zach.
I'm AJ.
I'm Jenna.
John Woodcock.
Mark LA.
Barbara.
Melanie Layler.
Soraya Harris.
Jim Q. Corn.
Tim Ryan.
Robert Bird. Jeremy Johnson. Louis Ackerman.
Pete Hudson. Mark Steiner. Chris Huntley.
Okay. Zach Miller, AJ. This is getting tough already. All right. Without further ado, AJ, take it away.
All right. Let me start my timer so I can figure everything out. There. All right. I'm AJ Comfort. I am president and co-founder of Space Monkeys Down. May see a little bit of a resemblance here to the monkey on the left. They had to add a little bit more hair. So, but the artist was kind enough to do that for me. Also darkened it a little bit. So, I promised myself the first 15 seconds I'd be nervous. I've never pitched before. After that, I'd have a good time. So, I think I'm about to hit that. I'm going to start off trying to make this a little interactive. How many of you play games? Raise your hand if you play games. Okay. So, how many of you, when I asked that question, thought of this guy? The kid sitting in whatever room, his room or whatever, playing a video game. Okay? I saw a couple of hands, probably many of you did, right? So, what about this game? Monopoly. That's a game. See, most people nowadays are conditioned to think game, video game, immediately. And there's a reason for that. Video games do extremely well, and they're all over the place. So, but games, tabletop games especially, are making a big comeback. They're in a golden age for about the last decade. So much so that Will Wheaton, any of you familiar with Star Trek The Next Generation, he has a YouTube show on the Geek and Sundry channel called Tabletop. And that's all they do. They get other celebrities on there. They play tabletop games. You know, I think they're playing Settlers of Catan there. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things going on. And the other thing to note, one of my other personal favorite games, backgammon. It's a great game. I've played it since I was a child. Here's a fun fact. Backgammon has been around for 5,000 years. So it originated in Iran, if I remember correctly, the city of Ur. So humanity has been playing games of one sort or another forever, for as long as recorded history knows. So let me ask the question again. How many of you play games? Exactly. Almost everyone is a gamer of some sort or another. So then the next question is, shall we play a game? How big is the market? Well, before I really get into this, you got to understand, there is no gaming industry market. So what I've done is I've broken it into 2 different groups, the tabletop industry and then the video game industry, because this is actually a real thing, a real segment, video game industry. The tabletop industry, it's a loose conglomeration of anything that's physical. So that's your Monopoly, that's your backgammon, poker, card games, all that, okay? So I've kind of lumped that all in together, one, because I could find stats about it, so that helps. And then I also included in here the film industry. I love watching movies. most people do. So it'll give you a point of comparison to really understand how big the market is. So in 2013, the MPAA reported the film industry made $10.9 billion, that's with a B, in revenue. That's some good stuff. 2013, one of the Iron Mans, I'm pretty sure, came out that month, or came out that year. So there's a lot of money being made in the film industry. So the tabletop industry, closest stats I could find is in 2011. Market analysts said it made somewhere in the order of 800 million to 1.1 billion. That's not bad, especially for a market that's making, I believe, 10% year-over-year growth for the last decade. Now, for the big one, the video game industry. So let me ask this real quick. Do you think the video game industry will be higher or lower than the film industry?
Higher.
Yes. Video games are big business. ESA reported in 2013 $15.4 billion. That's half again as much as the film industry. And yet most people still think video games, the kid sitting in playing his computer game. ESA reports in 2014 the average age of a gamer was 34. That's people who started playing video games when I was a teenager, because I'm one of those. I'm a little more than 34, but I count myself in that group. I started playing games way back in the 80s. And I still play games today. So now I have some stats I want to pull out. How many of you have heard of Candy Crush? All right, it's a good one. It's very well known. It's a time suck. It's one of those little games that you can just play forever and do it. I purposely have avoided it. I've never actually played it myself because I know I would get addicted to it. But in 2013, Candy Crush reportedly made $230 million that year. That's just for a little phone app. No counting what the Call of Duty makes. Their huge franchise that's been going around forever. So there's a lot of market potential and capability here. So who's in? I'm right now primarily focused in the tabletop market. So who's in the tabletop market? Well, Hasbro. There's a reason why I made Hasbro, half the size of this screen. They own half the market for the tabletop industry. In fact, those stats are reported on the last slide. Market analysts said, well, Hasbro made, somewhere around $400 to $600 million. So we'll just double that, and that's what the tabletop industry made. That's how they reported their stats. So there's other big names, Mattel. People are pretty familiar with both these names. But thanks to other things like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and other crowdfunding, there is a slew of smaller venues, smaller, homegrown, entrepreneurial startup companies. Tasty Minstrel Games, TMG. I have a couple of their games. Stone Mayor Games. They're really exciting. They're one of the few people I found that have a similar concept to what I'm going to get into in a minute that Space Monkeys Down is exploring. Cool Mini or Not. They do a lot of really cool games, zombies, board games, And then, of course, these two down here, Space Monkeys Down, and our partner, the Phalanx Consortium, who's a local small business based out of Williamsburg that we partner with. They're our producer and our distributor. So there's tons of space in here. And so what are they doing? What are they making? Okay. Obviously, you see, I got a thing with Monopoly. I keep using it as the reference example. So on the established side, the Mattel and the Hasbro side, you see they have a lot of revenue. They have a lot of capability to do stuff, but they're very big. And so what they focus on are proven games, things they know will make money. So you got, Monopoly 1, Monopoly 2, Monopoly 3, Monopoly 4. There's lots of other types of games, but you just see them reinventing the same game under a new branding. That's cool. They know they're going to get money. I love Star Trek. I love Star Wars. I buy a Star Wars game. I own the Klingon Monopoly set. So, but what are the small guys doing? Small guys like this. This is a game that went out on Kickstarter. just finished up a couple weeks ago. It's called Exploding Kittens. Okay? Think Uno, but with kittens that explode and kill you, and then you're out of the game. It's very fun. But this was so successful on Kickstarter, it earned $8.8 million in 30 days. It is the most successful game in Kickstarter history, card game. It had over 220,000 backers. 220,000 people said, this is a cool game and I want it. I'm one of them. So it's a new game. It's an odd concept. It's not a concept that, you know, most of the big names would touch. I mean, who thinks Exploding Kittens would be interesting? Well, 220,000 people did, worth 8.8 million.
Yeah.
This is obviously an extreme example of, you know, success on Kickstarter. But there's dozens and dozens of projects on Kickstarter that successfully fund every day. Another good example from a couple of years ago, Zombicide. It's a board game, and it's a cooperative board game. You and 3 of your friends have to survive escaping a building, that's the board, in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. And so it's how you work together in order to achieve that goal while running away from the zombies. It's actually a lot of fun. I don't own it. One of my friends does. At the time this one came out, the first one, it was the most successful game of its kind. I believe it raised on the order of $200,000 to $500,000. So that was about 3 years ago. So also very good. And then my personal favorite that is yet to come out is Topex Dominions, which is, of course, the game that Space Monkeys Down is working on. So, which I'll get into in a minute. So then, what are we doing? What's Space Monkeys Down doing? How are we getting into this? Okay. One thing to note about all games in general is they have lots of pieces and parts. So any game can have any combination of these types of items. They can have cards, they can have tokens, they can have dice, they can have boards. So there's lots of things that make up a game, whether it's a board game, dice game, card game, miniatures game, etc. So Topex Dominions, again, the game that we're working on, it's our first one, is going to be a card game. So the card is going to feature predominantly in it. But it's also going to use dice, and it's going to use tokens in order to play the game. So my thought is, what if we connect different games, different genres of games? Some people like card games. Some people like board games. Some people like dice games. Some people like them all. I'm one of those. So what if we look at a board game? What does a board game have in it? A board. It can have cards. It can have dice. And it can have tokens. What about a dice game? A dice game, like Yahtzee, can have dice, of course, and can have cards. What about a miniatures game? Same thing. Same basic components, except now you have a miniature. It's no... what I did here was I purposely reused these elements. So that's the core of our game, interconnected gaming. You take a concept, you take an item from a game that you like, card game, Topex Dominions. You have your really favorite character that you use it, you play with it all the time when you're in a card game. You kill your friends with him. He's your buddy. He helps you. So what if you could take that card in a separate game, a board game, let's just call it Topex Battlefields, and you could use that card as your primary character in a game designed to use that way. So now the consumer is investing in a venue of games, a universe of games. They're not investing in just one. They're not spending all of their money into this card game that they then can't use those pieces and parts anywhere else. They can now reuse those pieces and parts in their other games. I have some friends that are only going to play board games. That's what they love. So in that scenario, without this interconnected concept, I could never take my personal favorite, which are more card game styles, and really play a game, a fun game with my friends, because I always have to give up my cards to suit a traditional board game. So again, with our idea, you'd be able to take cards, dice, tokens, all of these concepts and play with it. What if you had a cooperative dice game where you were using your characters in an almost role-playing like fashion to achieve a goal, and the dice were there to facilitate whether or not you won or lost? Well, you still got to have a hero in that concept, and that comes right back to your cards. So this is our core concept. We want to take our games and we want to bridge them all together. Okay? And there's a step beyond this. I didn't illustrate this on here. This is probably our mid-range plan. Beyond this, this concept actually extends very well back into the digital realm, video games. So have any of you heard of Xfinity? Okay, it's a Disney concept is Xfinity, right? Yeah, there's a couple of competing ones, but it's a little guy that you can stick on a board, and then physical guy, you stick on a board, and then it uploads that guy, and you play him on a computer game. That's the core of it. Okay, so imagine miniatures that are sitting on a base, an electronic base, not a physical base like most things, that can read a chip embedded in the miniature and then display digitally the results, the stats of that character. What if you could take that same character, set them on a some other device that connects back to your game console or your PC game? You can take that character and his stats that you love so much and play him in your video game. Level up the character in the video game world, playing whatever, and then come back to your buddies at the miniatures table with your digital display, and you have the same character, the same guy you were just playing online with. So the technology exists for all of that, just a matter of getting there. So not only can we bridge all of the tabletop games, we can then build the next bridge back out to the video game, which is the much larger market, $15 billion in 2013. So that's our core concept. Now, as I've heard many times, and Tim can attest to this, talk is cheap. It's all about the execution. So, like I said, this is our first game. And so what you see here is kind of a blow up of our card and the dice. We made this so we do prototypes and testing and play testing and whatnot. But what you see here on the die is a triangle shape. You can see a circle shape up here. The die actually has 4 different shapes on it: square, triangle, circle, and then a 6-pointed star. And then you see that triangle is represented on the card. So that tells the user you're looking for, when you roll the dice to see how well you do in combat, you're looking for a triangle in this case. So if you roll one of the triangles, notice this one has a 2, that one has a 3, that's how many points you're going to get. Okay? So what about this symbol over here? Well, when we first come out with Codex Dominions, it's not going to mean a whole lot, but it does have an application in the future. It's actually going to be part of our dice game, because we've already been thinking about what our dice game would be like, and we don't have the money to create highly specialized dice there's 15 of these types of symbols. That's a very costly proposition to make dice that can accommodate that. So, but we know when we get to the dice game, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, we will have the revenue to make that happen. So we want that interconnectedness. We want the ability for the people who buy our dice game 2 years from now to still be able to take this card, printed in 2015, and play. And they'll be able to then have the choice whether to use the existing dice and the existing symbols or the newer symbols. And they can even play with both. So if they bought the updated dice, but their friends haven't, no big deal. It still works the exact same way. So that's our core concept. That's the execution of it. With the board game, we'll have other ideas coming out. How do you make the card useful in the board game without detracting from the other elements, which is probably the biggest, hardest part of doing this, is you don't want to homogenize the items so much they lose all value in their, in a single vein of the concept. All right, so what have we done so far? We've done a lot of work on the game mechanics. We actually showcased the game mechanics about a year ago at 757 Makerspace. And it was actually great. It's the first time we'd taken out of the garage and out into public and let everybody see it. It went wonderfully. The people there challenged us, and they even asked a whole bunch of questions my friend and I weren't even prepared for, and it went well. So we've been working on the mechanics over the last year. We have a solid game. We've also been working on the design of a card. So here's an example card, all out. There's only two things missing. Of course, the picture that would go right here. We have a separate artist working on that. And then over here is another symbol which will denote how rare that card is, whether it's common, uncommon, etc. In our artist, we had some finer details we wanted him to work on while we did this. All right, so where are we going from here? We have mechanics. We have most everything we need. The big thing we're missing, of course, is capital. So our plan is, we already have plans with the Phalanx Consortium. They're our producer and our distributor. We're going to Gen Con. Any of you familiar with Gen Con? Okay, Gen is good. Any of you familiar with Comic Con? Okay, Gen Con is Comic Con, but for role-playing games. It's just as big. It's set up in Indianapolis, very close to the birthplace of Gary Gygax, who invented Dungeons and Dragons back in the 70s. That's, it's a big deal. There's going to be, last year there was 186,000 visitors. So 55,000 unique people per day over 4 days. So we're going to Gen Con. And at the same time we go to Gen Con, we're starting our Kickstarter campaign. And so while we're there, we're going to get people excited about the game and then have it so they can go right to Kickstarter if they like it that much and support us. And we're going to run a campaign up to that marketing and social media, letting everybody know we're being there, what booth we'll be at, come visit us, come talk to us. This is also good because it also will get exposure for our producer and distributor, the Phalanx Consortium. So, because they have their own interest, and vice versa. Their interest will feed over to us. So it's going to be a great thing. So the biggest thing we need right now, feedback. We've had a lot of people play test the game, but mainly gamers and mainly people who know us, which they're our friends. They're gonna be honest with us to a point, or they're gamers, so they're gonna read over the rules very quickly and they're just gonna understand it, or we're gonna explain it to them mid-game. What we need is the whole slew of testers, people who don't normally play games but are willing to actually read the rules, tell us if they make sense to a non-gamer, because that's part of our market is to get new gamers to try this, and get other gamers who generally don't play this game, play card games, to try it. Tell us what they think. Tell us how they feel. Feedback. And the mantra here, no one creates a perfect game, book, or project on their first try. Fail faster. Get your concept out, try it, get feedback on it. Most projects start, if you use a grading scale, is like an F. And then through feedback, you can maybe work it up to a D. And then over time, you can hopefully get it up into that A or B range, which is the good spot where you can actually start taking it to market. That's where we're trying to get to now. So that, I will leave you with contact information. Reach out and like us. Facebook, Twitter, if you have QR readers, QR codes. That's what I got. Any questions?
So are you still in the F phase?
I would say we're probably in a solid D+, maybe C-.
Okay.
Because we have the mechanics, they're built, they're tested. We just haven't tested them on a wide enough audience to make sure they're as solid as we think they are.
How many test games do you have how many test games do you have for people to try out?
Right now we have 14 characters, 2 opposing races, so 7 of each, and then can do mock-up battles. So.
How do you get to market? Obviously there's been a growth of things like Killer Bunnies and Crimes Against Humanity that the younger generation got onto. How do you really plan to market that group and that dynamic?
That's a good question, and that's one of the things that I'm really kind of not knowledgeable on. I mean, I have some ideas, social media, Facebook, things like that. So I'm going to give Hatch a little plug here. I just joined their program, 1004, because I'm normally a software developer and now a game designer. I've never run a business before, so that's really the area that I need more help in, the marketing, the accounting, the business side of the house.
Is there a Reddit LARPing page?
Is there what?
A
big Reddit LARPing page?
Probably. I haven't looked at into LARPing, but I know
You
there's.
said action. You said role playing. So
Yeah.
Are those two separate things?
Yes.
This is very much.
Well, LARPing does play into it. I mean, it's all part of the
I would look at
the field.
So let me rephrase that then. I would check out Reddit,
Mhm.
as that's probably a medium that's big set of your end users,
Right.
And do the exact same thing to them and say, "Go break this. Tell us what's wrong. Do all this stuff." Because what will happen is they're going to be early adopters on that,
Right.
and they'll end up becoming buyers of the product, changing the game, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a good idea.
Something to answer to what you were asking about, when we went, when we tested not too long ago,
Williamsburg Muster, a
Williamsburg
convention up in
Mustard,
Williamsburg.
we had a much younger group of kids trying it out, and one of the things that they brought up to us was the fact that the price point of the game, because like the miniature games and some of the other games, you're spending hundreds and possibly thousands of dollars on figures and all of that stuff if you're heavily into it. But because it doesn't have all that, it plays a lot like some of the miniature games, but the price, because it's cards and pieces, it will be much lower and things like that. And the kids were like, we really like to see that because they don't have the same kind of, income
Right.
as the adults that play the games. So
Yeah,
it's definitely something.
Yeah, that's what the Killer Bunnies model was a great one. So they went in, you could have fun
Right,
Mhm.
for $20 or $30.
right.
Yeah.
And then you played it so much and you went home and you played it with mom and dad, and then they bought you another set for Christmas.
Right.
And so that gave you recurring revenue.
Right.
That's kind of where.
Yeah. Any other questions?
All right. Well, thank
All
you
right.
so much, AJ.
Thank you.
We'll send out all the slide deck and all the information so you guys can get the game and do it. As you guys are out here setting those points.
That's nice.
Who wants to go next?
Did you see the vacation picture that showed up afterwards?
Yeah.
That was the picture of us.
I do, but if you want to use yours, yours might be easier. Yeah. Mine was a little broken on yours. What kind of cable you got? I guess I should ask that first. We're good. Yep. Hold on it.
Cool, I'm not the only one. Holy Trump.
We probably actually have more DGAs than not. But clearly we're
Just
not.
finding them, yeah. Yeah, that's why I used the stool and
Okay.
had it over there because it was
Okay, there
such a
we go.
short cable.
There we go.
Well, just to fill the space, I'm Mark Steiner. This is Steve Wall. We're with Tenole. We got started back in September at an event called Start Norfolk over here in Old Dominion, and we sort of brainstormed on, hey, we want to do something. We had about 20 different ideas we threw around it over a beer one day, and we came up with this idea of looking at the conference industry because we came from that. We're both meteorologists and oceanographers by background and been to a lot of conferences and whatnot. And we thought that we might be able to do something better in that space, and so that's kind of where we started. We iterated. We went to Start Peninsula back in November, and then participated in the Peninsula Technology Incubator Accelerator Program up through January, and got to where we're about to go from a prototype to a beta that we go out and do some testing. So this is Steve Wall. He's the main guy. He's the founder. I'm the co-founder. My other businesses, I do franchise placement with FranNet. So I'll give it to Steve, and I'll just sort of flip slides.
And if you could try and be in this area,
I'll be down here on the couch.
even better.
Oh yeah, I guess you missed me. I'm sorry. Got my
I
voice.
moved it. I moved it. Perfect.
All right, so next. Again, everyone, I'm Steve. This is Mark, co-founders for Tenole. Actually, go back one.
And so if you've seen us, as I said, we've been around for a couple of months, working sort of the circuit around here in the Hampton Roads area. You may have seen us with this original spelling. The spelling is changing, but the pronunciation stays the same, based on a lot of very specific kind of feedback from folks looking at it, that this is a kind of a hard, the original spelling is kind of hard to pronounce. So the pronunciation is Tynol. It's based on an Irish word. The original spelling is is closer to that Irish spelling, but just kind of wasn't working for folks. So what's the pain point that we're trying to solve? It's the modern conference. As the pace of and the amount of information has accelerated, that's hit the conference space just like it's hit everything else. So in addition to going to the conference and trying to meet up with people and going to see some talks, you're now monitoring the conference Twitter feed, the Instagram. There's just more and more information, and the paradox of choice is kicking in. The more information you got, actually the less effective you become. So people are still investing a lot of money, because this is what we've always done. We always go to conferences. Certain types of professionals have specific conferences that you go to every year to present your information. That's kind of how a certain class of professional person gets their information out. Academics publish papers. Other folks do other things, but folks in a lot of technical, scientific areas will go to the annual conference for whatever organization they belong to and give a paper or two about what they've been doing, what's going on, what new products and services, what new techniques they're using. So, but the problem, the conferences are becoming less and less effective because there's so much going on. And people are really starting to wonder. A lot of people have started not going to conferences anymore because they just can't get enough out of it. They're too overwhelmed with what's going on, too overwhelmed with what they have going on at home. They stop going. So that's kind of our theme, is let's reclaim the conferences. They're great venues, but you need some help to sort through all of the wheat and all the chaff to get to the wheat. So what Tynol is, it is a service. It's not just an app. It's a service integrated between web and mobile. The big focus and kind of one of the big differentiators is we're focusing on the attendee at the conference. There's a pretty mature space, pretty more mature industry out there right now that is supporting the conference organizers. You'll see later on, it's a large industry. There's a lot of people in the space, but certainly to pretty first level examination, they're focused on the organizer and helping the organizer do their tasks. Everyone has capabilities for the attendee, but no one really seems to be focusing on putting the attendee first. So that's one of our big differentiators. We're worried about the attendee and making sure that they have a better conference. You'll see there, it's in smaller print by design. What we're finding is, and this is one of the things we've learned over the last couple of months, as we're trying to get to these attendees, a lot of times we have to go through the conference. To go through the conference and to get their cooperation, we got to scratch a few of their itches. So what we're doing is we are providing some real basic functionality for the conference organizers. But again, we look at that not really as a unique value proposition. It's much more for us. It's kind of marketing to use those conference organizers to get to those attendees, to their attendees. It's based on a real we're really focused on the user experience, both online, on web-based application and a mobile application. We want it to be real straightforward, very easy, very low very quick learning curve. Push the information to the users. Don't make them pull it, which is sort of this industry standard right now. We want it to cover everything that the attendee is worried about. There's a whole chain of events that goes with attending a conference. Once you get there, really, how do you work your schedule? What professional talks do you want to go to? What people do you want to meet? What meetings do you want to go to? And that's what we're focusing on, sort of that meat and potatoes right there. As we grow, we expect we'll add things on that sort of the ends of the conference, whether it's travel, logistics, hotels, things like that. But that's not where we're starting. But we do want to cover kind of everything that they're looking for. And a real big thing is right now, most medium to large size conferences have the conference app. And what that is, they go to a provider of apps and they'll white label that application. They'll tailor it a little bit for that particular conference and put it out there. So now if you go to 6 conferences a year, you end up having to learn 6 different applications, 6 different UIs. And quite honestly, their functionality is not great. So that's another of our distinguishers value propositions is you learn one application, one set of UIs, and you can use it for all 6 of your conferences, assuming that the conferences are cooperating with Tenole. So reducing the learning curve, repeatability, and being able to use a single tool for many functions. It's also extensible, or we're also designing in extensibility from the beginning. We're focusing on conferences, and that'll be phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But we can see downstream when we get to phase 4, 5, and 6 that it could expand beyond conferences. It could apply to work groups, people who get together for a specific project, things that they're working on. And we're designing that with that in mind from the beginning. Kind of creating things we call content networks, which is groups of people who are organized around a particular topic. And then finally, this is a big thing in terms of our business model. It's got to be valuable enough that people are willing to pay for it. We're not excited about a freemium model. Not excited about advertising supported products. We believe that it provides a value. We believe that people will pay for that value, and we keep the price modest and the return on investment high. Who's our targeted users? They're kind of, quite honestly, folks like Mark and I, sort of middle-aged, middle managers. Yeah, I'm past middle age. Mark's they work in a professional capacity. They're overwhelmed by all the information that's going on, of the things they have going on, family duties, personal duties, things at work, community organizations. They've got a lot going on, and they need help getting more done. They either now or in the past have had some kind of technical interest. You know, again, Mark and I, as he mentioned, we both have been meteorologists in our background. So there's lots of meteorology conferences you go to kind of keep up your scientific and technical skills. We're interested in that, but again, both in our cases, you kind of get promoted out of the day-to-day science and technical. You become a manager, or you're doing business development, you're meeting with clients, whatever it might be. But you're still interested in it. You'd like to have more time to get into it. You look at these conferences as an opportunity to kind of keep your hand on it, get refreshed once a year on what's going on in the science. And you get really frustrated when you can't go to any of the talks because you got to go talk to client X, Y, or Z. So it's kind of, that's the mindset. And the busier they are, the better it is for us because they need help. They're overwhelmed, and we can help kind of organize their lives. The one stat on the right is important. There are a lot of reasons why people go to conferences. You know, there's social reasons, there's professional networking reasons, there's people just like to travel and get away from home. But American Express survey from 2014, you know, number one reason why people go is the content of the particular conference they're going to. Did you have a?
No, that's good.
So I referred to it earlier. The conference industry is a really big industry. These are U.S. numbers only. Almost 2 million events, $280 billion in spending associated with these conferences, and over 200 million people, 200 million attendances at various conferences. It's not growing dramatically, but it's growing modestly, and you know it's obviously a large market. So how are we going to neck down from that? We obviously can't tackle that whole market. Our first cut is a lot of those are internal company events where we feel that there's already a communication medium. You know, you have a company intranet, you have a company portals, you just have email where you already have everybody's email addresses. So we've cut those out. That's well over half. And then the next cut is we're narrowing down. There are conferences that have, you know, as was mentioned, you know, Comic-Con, 45,000 people in a day for 4 days. There are conferences with tens of thousands of people. There are conferences with 200. So we're working on the 500 to 1,000 attendee sector. Kind of the minimal bound is it's got to be large enough and complex enough to make our service provide a lot of value. If it's just 10 people getting together to do 4 talks, our application doesn't provide as much value as for a more complex conference. Now, we'd love for people to use it for the smaller ones, but you know, we have to figure out what set we're going to focus on. What's out there right now? So down the left, and there we could continue this list to 100 entrants in the market. There, as I said, in particular to support the conference organizers, there's a pretty crowded space, a pretty mature market. But what we've done is broken up the functionality. In the blue columns is the organizer functionality. And what you can see is that that's where all the effort, that's where the features, that's where the support is going, sort of from the incumbents in the market space. They're focused on supporting the conference organizers. Where we at Tenol are going to focus is over on the left in the green columns. Specific functions for the attendees, what makes their experience better, how can they capture more information, retain it, bring it home, and take action on it. Next, yeah. So again, just to kind of provide some context, the same sort of competitors in the space. As you can see, conferences are used to paying thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for analogous services, for services related to supporting the conference and the organizers and the attendees. So, we're working on our pricing model, but these are the kinds of numbers that we're competing against. Right now, we're looking at 4 real products that will actually be selling, things that people will be paying money for. The first up is the individual users. So I'm Steve, I'm going to a conference on a particular topic, and I know that I'm able to get to 25 talks, but there's 75 of them that I'm interested in. You can't get to all of them, so what do? So you use Tenol to get copies of the slides for those other 50, in addition to getting slides from the first 25 that you go to, and all of them are pushed to you at the end, as opposed to you having to go hunt them down, download them one at a time, which is, again, sort of the current model. There's 2 real ways. The conference will either send out a CD with the all 1,000 talks on it, or they'll post them on a website, and you have to go manually download the ones you're interested in, which is just kind of a pain. It takes time. You've got to curate it. So one of the big values is we do that work for you and push you the information that you tell us you want. So that's sort of a primary product. The attendee gets to use our product and service for an individual conference. Another way that can happen is that the conference itself can say, that's a great service. I want to provide that for my attendees. And Tenol, from a Tenol perspective, we'll give them a group discount. And you go ahead, if you have 1,000 attendees, you get the reduced price and you pay for all 1,000 attendees, and then they get a free usage for that conference. That's obviously much fewer marketing events that we have to take. So, but we know that we expect to get sales in both of those channels. A third is for the exhibitors. We've talked about the professional conferences, the talks. In most of these conferences, off to the next door is an exhibit floor where people come in, they pay money, they put up a 10 by 10 booth, they're handing out flyers, they're handing out glossy brochures. They have salespeople and technical people there to talk to the attendees. Right now, that's a hard copy, intense kind of event and interaction. That's the story of how we got started was when I came back from a conference in June, and I had to pay $45 to ship back about 15 pounds worth of hard copy stuff because I was getting the last flight of the day and I only had carry-on and I didn't want to check a bag because it was going to miss the connection. So I ended up paying $45 to ship back, this thing. And of course, when I get the box of stuff 3 days later at home, I stick it on the corner of the shelf, and it sits there for the next 6 months until I clean it out. You never look at it again. So that's a really inefficient system. It's a really expensive system, and it kills a lot of trees. So as we've been looking at this, we realized that just digitizing that transaction, passing that information from the exhibitors who are vendors who are paying to market to the attendees of the conferences, turning that from a hard copy based transaction into a digital transaction, sending in electronic documents that can be tagged with search words. The user only has to get the ones that they request. We think that actually adds a lot of value for both parties. So that's the third channel. And then the fourth is sort of downstream. At the top, you're worried about one specific conference. And nominally, we'll send you a set of slides, and then you save that on your hard drive or your Dropbox or wherever. You curate it yourself. Okay, I'm going to file all of these in my material polymers folder, or I'm going to file all of these in my meteorology folder. What the membership does is gives you an online account online storage through our cloud storage services, where we'll just store it for you. You know, we'll give you tools to curate the content yourself, but you never have to worry about where it is. You never have to worry about backing it up. You don't have to worry about transferring it when you get a new laptop in 12 months. It's all there on your account, easily accessible to you just with a click. This is background. Mark and I, again, we've known each other for a while and both been out of the Navy for 6, 7, or 8 years, and just been looking to find some kind of opportunity in a venture where we can kind of tap into our entrepreneurial desires. And so this is what's been doing for the last 7 or 8 months.
This is, go ahead.